Hey everybody! Today I want to show you how we can get that classic DX7 piano sound that we all know and love. You know the one. Kind of sounds like this. So one thing that's actually really neat about this is that the overall process is actually pretty straightforward. It's more just about those little decisions we make along the way to really get that sound. And in addition to that, you can really take it and sort of craft it into your own sort of feel and vibe and style depending, on what you're doing. So we're going to kind of give some alterations and variations that we can go through in creating the sound. Okay, so some of the first steps we need to do. Number one is make sure we have a VST that is emulating the DX7. If you're looking for an option that's free, using Dexed is kind of the go-to. Then the next thing we can do is actually get a hold of these presets. And there's a great website called All the Web, and it's going to contain pretty much everything you're looking for in regards to DX7 presets. This classic DX7 sound is really reliant on two main things: chorus and reverb, and then anything else that we add on top of that is just going to be that extra percent that gets us all the way there. So things like EQ, compression, and delay if we want to use it. In our chain, the first effect we're going to be using is a chorus, and that's going to be one of the most important choices that you make. Now the thing about chorus is there's many different types and styles that have been around. So here's a bunch of different variations of chorus that we can use. We can go off of something that's based with this sort of sound. Or we can go with a sound like this. Or maybe even something like this. It's all going to be up to you and to decide what sort of flavor works. But these are some simple suggestions I have for chorus effects that you can use in your productions that you might find useful or interesting. And these are generally the ones that I personally tend to lean a little bit more towards. But that doesn't mean there aren't other options out there that are really good. In regards to the settings that I'm going to be using on our chorus, generally they all kind of align in that same area with, variations depending on the situation. So normally I'll make my speed kind of like at 50% or very moderate, not super fast, just kind of in a general middle ground. Same thing for our detune amount and all of our other settings for the most part. And the reason for that is because I want to allow some of the original signal to come through, so we still get that definition of the sound and we're not getting something that's super washed out. Because especially depending on what chords we're playing and the mix, we may actually have a sound where the DX7 sort of peaks in these weird ways that is completely resulting from the actual chorus effect. One brief interjection before we continue. Some people say that I'm pretty demanding, and I would say that's true. So if you like this video and you're finding it helpful or interesting, make sure you're commenting, that you're liking, and most of all, subscribing, just to make sure you keep up to date on what I'm doing. And you can donate to me on Patreon, because that's going to help me considerably in making more of these videos and to really keep up the production value and make it even higher in the future, and also to diversify all the different sort of projects I can do. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and first meet my demands and then go back to the video. The next thing we want to do is actually go to our EQ and our compression. So I usually add it after the chorus because, as I said earlier, the chorus can have some unusual behavior depending on the harmony and other factors in the song. So actually adding this after is going to give you a little bit more control of all that stuff that's going on. Essentially, I just want something that has a very smooth characteristic that's going to overall sculpt the sound. So we're going to think of maybe a little bit longer of an attack time, a little bit longer recovery, and we're going to choose something that's a lower ratio in general, just to make sure we have a nice soft compression that isn't too aggressive. We really want it to sound transparent and to more sculpt and shape the harmonies and what we're playing underneath it. Really what's important is that we're actually using it musically rather than very technically, and we're thinking about how it's sculpting what we're playing underneath it. because really that's going to be the most important thing. So with our EQ, this is something that's going to be obviously super dependent on our song, but the one commonality that I would definitely recommend is to make sure you have a nice cutoff at that low end so we can leave it in there for the actual bass and the kick and the snare, because that's really where it's going to matter. And once all the elements of the song are combined, you're not even going to notice that it's gone. And it's a super crucial thing, in my opinion, at least to give it a modern production spin so that it sounds nice and cohesive in the mix. Okay, so let's move on to our reverb. This is going to be another very important and crucial step into our sound. The sort of characteristics that I would recommend in a reverb is going to be something that is around 1 second of decay time. And then also another thing about it is that it doesn't have a lot of rumble in the low end. So depending on what type of reverb you're using or what kind of impulse response you have, some may have a lot of response in that low end and it's going to cause you a lot of trouble. And you might want to choose something that is a little bit brighter than you would normally think to use, especially in the more darker modern production sound where the reverbs tend not to be very bright. Here's one style of reverb. Or another style. Or maybe something that sounds like this. I think they all sound pretty good. It's going to be up to what you want. With our reverb wetness, I think kind of keeping it no more than like 25 to 30% is going to be like a great area to exist in, because again, once you start to add too much reverb, it kind of pulls things too far back in the mix, and we kind of might start ending up with a similar problem that we would have with the chorus, where we're starting to lose definition of our sound. And also depending on, you know, the impulse response or reverb type we're using, we might find some really uncomfortable frequency buildups in certain areas. That's going to be the direct result of having everything just too wet. And the next thing we can do if we want to just add a little bit more dreaminess to it is we can use a delay. With our delay settings, I generally keep it a little bit more subtle, and depending on the composition, it's really going to change how we use our delay. Whether or not we have something that's going to be like a 16th note decay or a dotted 16th or a dotted 4th note, we might choose something like that for a faster composition with a lot more stuff going on. Whereas if we have a lot of sustained chords, maybe something slower would fit for that too. My recommendation again is to not keep it too crazy, keep it more subtle so that it's more felt than it is heard, because that's really what's going to be most important. You don't want to kind of like try to be super flashy with what you're doing. It's more to complement whatever sound you're making and to fit the arrangement more than anything else. Alright, so I think that's going to conclude everything for today. I hope that you found the video useful or helpful. If you have any questions or thoughts, make sure to leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.